Infowar.com.
Okay, and I'm super excited to be with you today and to be starting this year like this because last year, for those of you who joined, you realize that we had about 7 meetings last year, and about 8 meetings actually. The focus was strictly on your mind. We're working on your mind, working on becoming the savior, the mindset of the savior. And this year, what we're focusing on is empowering the saviors to know how to do everything they need to do, right? How do you build a business? Because let me say this to you, a lot of people are servicing a lifestyle in Africa and outside of Africa, and they think they are building, a business. And I always say to people, I met a group of Indians when I was trying to find a house in Canada last year for my family. And I realized 11 of them were living in a house, 11. And so they were moving away, and it was one of the houses we checked. And by the time I asked them, how come 11 of you live there? And they told me when they came to Canada, right, they wanted to reduce their overhead. So the 11 of them took a house. In fact, I saw the sitting room, there was a bed there. They took a house, and everyone was paying like maybe $200 every month, instead of each person paying $2,500 every month, $200 every month for their accommodation. Now, so I asked them, how were you guys able to, are you guys related? They said, no. How are you able to cope? And they said, well, we're all Indians and we know exactly what we're here to do. So I asked, why are you moving out right now? And they said to me, we have all become we built something that can be sustaining, that can service whatever we want to service. And that's why we're now moving out. So everyone is kind of sorted, but they collaborated. Africans struggle to collaborate. Get to diaspora, America to Australia to UK, we struggle. There is something in us that wants to announce that we have arrived. There's something in us that wants to show. So we buy cars. I mean, people get in here to the US. The first thing is they buy a car. And the process of buying the car is because of the advancement of the country, right? It's not that you're buying cash down like Nigeria, but they want to flaunt it and show people that they've arrived. They move into a mansion. At the end of the day, they realize that their bills is above what they can service, and they begin to run out of skelter. So what we're doing starting from today is to begin to show you how to build a proper business that can scale. I live with a mantra that says I'd rather own 10% of what will go global than 100% what will die local. And that's why I never do anything all by myself. So many of us are hustling. If you drop dead today, what's your business, right? So you need to lose yourself, lose your self-interest. It's not about you, it's bigger than you. It can scale across the world. You can be omnipresent like the Mark Zuckerberg and the rest of them. So it's not in the area of strength for me. And one of the things I always say to people, facilitators, owners of platforms, you don't always have to be the one teaching, whether you're a pastor or an imam. If there's a topic that someone else is better than you, please shut up, sit down and learn, and bring the person, whosoever he is, to come and teach the people so that they can get maximum result. So our guest today is a personal friend. I'll tell you the first time we met, I went to speak somewhere and it was there. And I was speaking on parenting. And for every time I spoke, when it was question time, it was tackling everything I had said. And for me, I get excited when I see people that can ask questions because I'm like that. If I sit in a meeting and someone doesn't sit where I'm going to ask questions, I'm not going to. So it was asking questions that even made me rethink some of the concepts. It was taking my mind to places, I just knew we were going to be friends, but I kept quiet. I met him briefly and, we hit it off later, and he's one of my closest pals. This guy will break a neck for me. It will go above and beyond for me, the same way I will do for him. And I just hinted him to say, this is what we're trying to do. And he graciously agreed to facilitate for us within the next 4 weeks, right? So today will be part 1 of what we're going to be sharing across 4 weeks. Please, if you are given a task after today's class, you need to do it. The way we do at the House of Saviors, we have no room for bystanders. We're not a church where you can sit down for 25 years of your life and be telling stories of how you got born again. No, we don't want that kind of thing here. We're not a religious outfit. We are an innovation hub, and we're empowering the new generation of African saviors that wherever they go, they'll become indispensable. So every Thanksgiving, you have to do it this year. We don't mind if all we have is 10 people are ready. We don't mind having 10 people. We're not interested in having 1,000 foot soldiers who cannot produce any sensible governor or any sensible president or anything. And we are clapping, we are saying, no, we don't want that. So I have with me, House of Saviors Way, we want to welcome, facilitate today, the man we call Otumba of Love. I mean, every time he wants to misbehave, I just tell him, okay, he's compassionate and he knows what he needs to do. I hope you are taking your Ruzu bitters, okay, because I placed him on Ruzu bitters as a punishment every time he goes to eat what he's not supposed to eat. Okay, let's make welcome Nathaniel Adegoke as we go on this trip in the next 4 weeks. Okay, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. So thank you so much, Pierre, for having me. I'm really so glad to be here. I remember when you asked me to come and do this, I wasn't exactly sure. I remember you said you wanted me to do this for 8 weeks. I thought to myself, okay, that's a long time. I like Sunday to be a downtime for me, to be honest. So I'm glad you called me to do this, but more importantly, I value you. I value our relationship, and that's why I'm doing this, because ultimately you've given so much to people, to the world, to me, and this is just a small way of giving back myself. So thank you for having me, and thank you for everyone who has joined. So I'm just going to jump right in, and I'm going to try to talk to us about some of the things that I have learned, both within structured formal settings, within a school framework, and also the things that I've learned by experience working in actual corporate world. By the grace of God, we've done quite a lot, and I'm so proud about some of the things that we've done, the places we've been, and some of the things that God has been able to put in our way. I'm a believer, so God is going to be very much in the middle of my conversation with you guys. But I do honestly hope you hear me. I do hope I'm loud enough. So let's talk about how to start a business and the kind of business that you should do and how to scale a business. One thing people fail to realize is there is a science to business, there's a science to doing business, and there's also an art form to it. But I'll try and concentrate on the principles, the concepts, some of the basic things that people do not get right, that they should if they would do the right things, or if their business would do very well. So number one, I'm going to start by saying you need to be solving a problem. So it does not matter how good or how creative the idea is, unless it is solving a problem, it's not likely going to translate into a long-lasting viable business. You probably would just continue to do that as a hobby or as something that you just do to while away time. But if your business would be sustainable, if your business would last generations, if your business would transcend your current location to other markets, then you need to be solving a problem. And this, as basic and as fundamental as it is, so many people do not get it. For starters, as an entrepreneur, you're most likely going to be very passionate about your idea. I don't meet a lot of entrepreneurs that are not passionate about what they do or what they believe in. There might be a few, but a lot of entrepreneurs are quite passionate about their ideas. And in a lot of cases, those passions do cloud objectivity. When you're passionate about something, there is a big chance that you miss out on some of the small details. So when you most likely talk to me about your idea, expect me to sit in the position of someone who is trying to push back, trying to find all the ways that your idea is not likely going to work, because that is exactly what I do. I look at businesses and I try to assess how viable this business will be on the long term. So, number one, make sure that you're actually truly solving a problem. And before I go ahead, I'd also say that I would like to give room for questions. So I know the time is around with 28 minutes gone already. So I'll probably speak for like another 20 minutes, and then I'll give room for questions so that if you need clarifications, then I can clarify. Today, we will talk mostly about the basic rudimental stuff. In the coming weeks, I would delve into some more technical things that you probably would need to put in place as an entrepreneur. But let's start with the basics. Number one, you have to solve a problem. Number two, you need to make sure that you carefully assess the size of your market. By market, I mean, what's the size of your customer base? Who are the people who potentially will buy this product or will pay for this service? People might be passionate without carefully considering if the amount of people with this problem they're trying to solve is big enough to sustain the business. So, for instance, you have a business that is catering to a subset of subset of the market. And when you assess that particular market, the size is not big enough to give you the kind of revenues that would then give you the kind of profit that would then make it sustainable on the long term. I'm going to hope, honestly, not to speak over our heads. I want to try to make sure that I'm breaking it down and speaking as much layman language as possible. But it's important for you to be solving a problem. Number two, to make sure that the people who have this problem are big enough to pay for your service in terms of the numbers, and also that the services are actually, the market is big enough to actually pay for your efforts on the long run. Now, by market, I'm talking about your immediate environment first. And if not your immediate environment, because this is when the Internet of Things age, where you could be in Lagos and your customers are in India, or they're in Australia, or they're in Iceland. But it still doesn't mean you shouldn't carefully assess who are the people that will buy my product and if the market is big enough. I'm going to speak and emphasize this. As entrepreneurs, we are mostly very driven people, and we often think about our business like our babies. And as a parent, I understand how much I could work and have a total blind side regarding my child, because I'm super sentimental about my child. And for a lot of business people, it's that way for their business as well. But it's important for you to critically assess what's the size of the market, and if this market is big enough to ensure that the business is sustainable. And it's very easy to do. You just need to carry out some research. So you figured out, okay, you want to start a shoe company. So you want to start making shoes. Okay, so what's the size of the shoe market in Nigeria or in your locality? Say you're in Canada or you're in US. And the big size is the first place to start from. But then you need to drill down. What portion of that market is accessible? Because this market can be, let me just pull out a number, maybe 10 million naira market or $10 million market. How do you then measure what size of that market is accessible to you? You need to think about the technology you have. You need to think about the people that will be interested in your own particular type of shoes, because not everybody would wear every type of shoes. So are you targeting the children's section? Are you targeting the adult section? Are you targeting the lifestyle section, or you're targeting the functionality shoe section? Are you targeting male? Are you targeting female? Once you drill down that, then you need to also assess, who are my competitors? So I have other shoe sellers, I have big brands, I have not even people in my locality, people that are far away, maybe in Australia, in America, that are doing shoes and sending to my market to sell. Those are the things that you need to put into consideration when you are then talking about your accessible market. So it's not just about the overall big market. You need to also think about the portion of that market that is accessible to you. So when you drill down to your accessible market, then you think about, is this market big enough to sustain the business? Do we have enough people within this market willing to pay for my product or willing to pay for my service? If the answer is a no, then you know obviously that you do not have a business. You do not have something to look forward to in the long term. You probably just have an hobby or something that you just kind of like enjoy doing by the side. And the third thing I'm going to mention is you need to talk about or think through what are the gaps between where you are and where you want to be in terms of skills, in terms of funding, in terms of opportunities. So, I want to start building shoes. I want to sell not shoes. So I'm not selling workout shoes or things that workers use on site. I'm selling fancy shoes that people wear to parties, and I mean lifestyle shoes. I'm targeting men, and I'm targeting what kind of man? Am I targeting the affluent, very rich, upper class man, or am I targeting the middle class man, or am I targeting the mass market? Once you drill down the accessible market that you're trying to target, and then you look at the competitors that you have, now you need to ask yourself critically, what do I need to be able to deliver on this business? Do I have the skills that I need? Do I have the resources that I need? Do I have the network that I need? By resources, I'm not just talking about money. I'm also talking about people. I'm talking about government support. I'm talking about all of the various things that will enable you to deliver on those business. These are the basics. These are the rudiments. You first need to ensure that all of these boxes are checked. If the boxes are not checked, then I'm sorry, you might be wasting your time. So remember, I said that today I'm just going to talk about and then talk about the more detailed stuff. Now that you figured out the market you're trying to assess, you figured out the skill gap that you have, and now the next step definitely will be then of the skill gap. Do you need to find a partner? So say for instance, if I'm going into a business, I know for sure that I'm not very, very client facing. By temperament, I'm an introvert. So I'm not likely going to do all the paperwork, all the strategy in the back end. If I am doing a business that is not B2B, it's not big, my products are not targeted to other businesses. If I'm targeted to B2C, which is I'm selling to real customers that consume the products directly, I know I definitely would need someone who is strong, people person, client facing, who is happy to engage with people 24/7 and excited about those kind of things. So for me, the first thing I would do is think of how to make that happen. So here I've written down, there are a few ways you could do that. Number one, you could hire a co-founder and say, you know what, I have this business, I want us to do it together. This is the skill gap that I have. I think you have that skill gap. I think you can supply it. And I think we could make a great team. For what you're about to do, this is what I am offering. Your co-founders will be equity participators, but remember, equity is quite expensive. So you also need to think through the details of that. What do I mean by equity is quite expensive? If you need, say, um, if you get to your business off the ground, your business, you own it 100%. And today, because it's just at the ideas level, you've not done anything, your valuation is probably zero. Because ideas are dime a dozen. There are ideas everywhere. So I tell people who submit business proposals to me and they want me to evaluate, and then they're worried about, I don't want anybody to steal my idea, or there are a million ideas that we get every single day. There was a time that we're getting an average of 10 business plans every single month. And we're not really big in the private equity or in the VC space. The real big boys probably get 100 proposals every single day. So ideas are a dime a dozen. Ideas are everywhere. The difference between ideas and between ideas that make it to become viable businesses and those that stay is execution. And that execution is a big deal. So for starters, equity is expensive because now your business is worth just $0, zero naira. But you've invited someone to join you who has the skills that you do not have. You might want to give them certain shares within the business, which you could vest at the beginning, or you could. God, I hope I'm not getting too technical. Vest could, when we say vest at the beginning, I mean they own the shares irrespective of what they do. The moment you sign the agreement, they own the shares. The shares are vested already. Sometimes you want to put the shares to be vested later in the future to say, yeah, in principle, you have 20% of the business, you're my co-founder, but that shares would not materialize until 1 calendar year or 2 calendar years, provided you meet certain KPIs. That's another way to structure that. That way, you say the shares are vested at the end of the tenure for whatever agreement you have. So if you hire someone and you give them 20% of your business, the business becomes successful. And in 5 years, that business is now valued at $10 million. That's a big money. That's 5.5 billion naira, right? But this person has 20% of that valuation just simply because they joined you at the beginning and they put in their sweat equity. You can imagine if you have enough money at the beginning of the business to hire someone that could deliver that skill gap that you're missing, you wouldn't have paid 20% of 5 billion, right, to make that happen. You probably would pay a lot less in wages and compensation and whatever. So that's what they mean when they say equity is expensive on the long run. But sometimes you don't have a choice, maybe because you are bootstrapping, you do not have a lot of backers, and all the monies that you need for the business, you're already spending it in a whole lot of other places. You cannot afford quality people or quality hire. Then you probably would be forced to do partnership at that point. So yeah, the fourth point I was saying is that you not need to figure out how to bridge that gap. Do you need to hire someone, like in my case, and the example I've cited, or do you need to actually go out and learn a skill, or actually go for a course, or actually sit in front of YouTube and learn and learn and learn and learn until you figure these things out? Again, that could take time. So, I mean, there are a million ways you could look at this and how you could juggle it. But remember that your business or your ideas are as solid as the amount of investments that goes into it at the beginning. So now you figure out the idea, you've checked that it's viable on the long term, you have the right accessible market that is sustainable. Number four, you've assessed the skill gap. You've tried to figure out how to bridge it, either because you're hiring or because you're paying someone to, or because you're giving out equity. And sometimes what the gap is not even just skills. Sometimes is government regulation. Sometimes it is just technology not being available. Sometimes, I mean, there are a whole lot of things that could create that gap. You need to sit down and be honest with yourself and be critical with yourself. I tell people the entrepreneurs that plays the devil's advocate on their own businesses tend to succeed better, because at that point, you're not being sentimental. You're actually very, 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 very objective. And you're looking at your business not from the lens of it has to happen, I must do it. But you're looking at your business with the lens of, is this something that should happen? Is this something that can happen? And that's a whole different ballgame altogether. Okay, so now we've sorted out these basics, right? Now you have a good business idea. Now you have people that can help you with it, because all the gaps that is existed, you figured out how to plug them. The next thing you will need to do then is to start implementation. The first step to implementation is business planning. If you fail to plan, they say you plan to fail. A lot of people do businesses without planning properly. And business planning is not an idea. It's something that you have to do. You need to think through the details of your strategy, the details of your marketing, your investment needs. You need to think about, I mean, your operations need. All of those things require proper planning. And there are tools, there are templates, there are things you can use to plan. Even if it's a 2-pager and 1-page Excel sheet, you need to plan. You need to have a proper business plan. The first one I typically would recommend is a business model canvas. If you Google business model canvas templates, there are tons of them on the internet. You can download a business model canvas template and you can read up on what are the things that you should document on your business model canvas. In this 4 weeks, part of what I'd also try to do is help you see how to not just have a viable business, but also how to make sure that the business is investable. Because a lot of entrepreneurs, they do have viable businesses and businesses that are probably even making money, but they are not investable. So working in private equity or working as a venture capitalist, I see a lot of businesses who their bank balances are they're insane if you look at what they have in the bank. But these businesses are not attractive to investors because over time they've not. Yes, Joyful Gilly, yes, business model canvas, yes. These people over time they haven't invested in operational excellence. Over time, they haven't invested in proper bookkeeping, over-tested in creating a core replicated in other markets, how they can take this other markets, how they can copy and paste your idea or your product. I'm more likely not to look at you twice. So part of what I'm going to be teaching over the next weeks is how to make sure that now that you have a good business thing right from the beginning. And one of the first things you need to do is to have a proper plan. So you need to develop a proper business plan. A business plan will not just talk about fancy things around what you want to do. A business plan will detail how you intend to do it, because you want to have fancy ideas about, oh, you're going to go to 4 markets in the first 5 years. You're going to become Pan-African by being in 20 African countries in the first 10 years. Yes, those are lofty goals, but exactly how do you do it? How do you get there month on month, year on year? How exactly do you want to do it? Building that business plan, creating a business model canvas at the beginning is not an option. So maybe next Sunday, I wasn't thinking about it, wasn't part of what I wrote down. I probably might take us through a business model canvas and how to create one, because as a minimum, it doesn't matter what you're doing, even if what you're doing is you're bottling local herbs or you're creating a platform for people to learn a particular skills that you already have. No matter how small you think your service or your product is, the least you can do is to have a proper business plan. And then you need to also define your strategies. Defining strategy, it's an entire, I could talk about that for like a whole day. Strategy is one of my own strongest suits because how your business performs is not necessarily just about the product that you're selling or the services that you're selling, but actually about the strategies that you employ. How do you take the product to the market? How do you make sure that the market continue to love and demand your products? Because your business is subject to the forces of demand and supply. And if you cannot play smartly within that cycle, then you begin to lose market or you begin to lose money. So yeah, you need to come up with a strategy that, number one, puts you in a very competitive position. Whatever it is you're doing, it's not novel. I tell people there is no new thing under the sun. There is nothing you're trying to do that someone has not thought of or someone has not done before. Your biggest objective should be how to do it in a way that is a lot more appealing to the market that you're taking the product to. So you're trying to do something that someone else isn't doing quite right, or someone else is doing as good as you can do it. So your competitive advantage needs to be thought through. And that could be a whole different ball game, and it could be a wide range of things. So talking about competitive advantage, you could talk about it from the angle of what are the extra features that I'm going to put in my product to make it better than my neighbors who is selling almost the same thing? What are the extra customer service requirements that I will put in my product that will make people prefer to buy from me, even if I'm selling the exact same thing that somebody else is selling? What are the other extra features that I can even throw in for free for my customers that gives them a sense of getting more value from me than if they had gone to someone else? Those are some of the things that you need to think about, and those need to form part of your strategy. Strategic thinking is key if your business will ever succeed. And remember, when you're building a business, I know PF said something around people just fund lifestyles with businesses and necessarily growing a business. Sometimes, especially if you're slim mode, require a lot of discipline to be able to separate your business from your person. Consequently, the monies from the business from your personal money. I tell people that as an entrepreneur, you need to be able to pay yourself and not just assume that, oh, it's my business, it's me, and then dip money into the business purse or the business account whenever personal needs arises. All of those are likely going to happen if you don't have a proper business plan. Because with a business plan, your targets are clear, how much you need to sell, how much you need to sell them, what revenue needs to come in, over what period, how much customers you need to acquire. Those sort of information will guide how you then approach doing your business going forward. So I still have a lot I've written down here, but our time is well far gone. I think on the entire call we have just maybe like 10 more minutes, and I really, really would like to take questions. So if you have any questions,
yeah. We have more than 10 minutes actually. Yeah.
Pierre, did you say something?
Yeah, I said we have more than 10 minutes. It's a 2-hour call.
Sorry.
Actually. We have more than 10 minutes. Your line is breaking. We have more than 10 minutes.
Hello, I didn't hear you, Pierre.
It's a 2-hour call, right? Yes.
Oh, this is 2 hours, not 1 hour.
No, the entire meeting is 2 hours. Right. It was your session that was supposed to be an hour. There we go. Okay, can you hear me?
This plan was about having the elements like your strategy and also defining clearly what your competitive advantage is. Remember, your goal is to sell more than your neighbor. Your goal is to have more customers than your neighbors. So as part of your competitive advantage, you need to define who your competitors are. So I'm trying to drill this down even further. So what are the people that I'm competing with if I'm selling shoes and I'm selling to men? So I'm competing with the big brands. I'm competing with the okay, now, okay, someone just asked a question. I'm going to answer that question in a bit. Let me finish what I'm saying. So if I am going to be selling shoes for men, am I selling, we've decided I'm selling lifestyle shoes, but you know, even lifestyle shoes, it could be fancy trainers or it could be corporate wears. Whichever one I'm selling, I'm dealing with big brands. You have the Gucci's, and then you have the Nikes. You have all these guys that you're competing with. But you can also be competing with local people within your immediate neighborhood, people who also do handmade. So you need to identify all your competitors, and you need to ask yourself quickly, what are they doing that I can do differently and get better results? What are they doing that I can do even if I'm doing the same way, but my cost is lower, therefore I can be more profitable. So there's a lot that goes into analyzing your competition and coming up with a competitive strategy to be able to beat them. So someone just asked the question, and the question says, how do you get ideas that solves the problem? Something like that. So there is a whole school of thought, or there's a whole body of work around that. It's called design thinking. So design thinking is about how do you move from ideas to viable products, and how do you ensure that those products are not just viable in your own eyes, but they are backed by data and research and findings from some of the people that you have spoken with. So the first thing is inspiration stage. You can't discount inspiration. And sometimes it's just about looking around you to get inspired on what it is that people are suffering, that people might be able to get a relief from. And inspiration is key, that you could get by different method. One of the method is doing surveys and questionnaires, or doing some form of brainstorming with a select group of focus group, they call them. So yes, you could do all of that, but more importantly, you need to make sure that those inspirations are not just castles in the air. You need to break them down, and that's what your ideation phase will do for you. So as part of your ideation phase, this is what you do. I like to create some prototype of an ideal customer. So if you've thought through and you've been inspired by a particular problem, one thing you can then do is create a persona, they call it. So create a persona of your ideal customer and ask yourself, what are the things that this customer, okay, what would this persona look like? So for instance, I'm trying to build shoes. So I'll create a persona. I would say my customer is Shakiru. Shakiru is a lower middle class earner who lives in Nigeria. Shakiru's monthly disposable income is 150,000 naira. But Shakiru wants to live and make people believe he earns 1 million naira. Shakiru has an aged mother that he is catering to on a monthly basis. Shakiru has a wife and he has 4 children all of whom are in public school. You create a persona of your ideal customer. And it's because of the brand I'm selling or the product I'm selling. It does not have to be the same for everything. It won't be the same actually for every single business or for every single product. So you create that persona, and with that persona, you can better imagine how Shakiru would receive your product. You can better imagine at what price point your product needs to be for Shakiru to be interested in it. You can use Shakiru to understand not just the demography, but actually the size of the accessible market, which I've spoken about in the previously. So yes, very good question. How do you get an idea that can then become a viable business? You can't not remove inspiration. You need to be inspired. You need to look around you and look at what people suffer or what people do not even know they're suffering, but you know that they could enjoy better at or they could get better value from. And then you need to come into the ideation phase where you're brainstorming with people, you're asking people questions, you're coming up with how do you shape or frame this person such that this person becomes my customer. How do I present my brand, or how do I position my product to be attractive to this particular guy? So yes, those sort of things are what you would need to do to be able to get your business, to be able to get an idea that then is viable. And guess what? By the time you've gone through all of that, you can then discover and say to yourself, okay, so Shakiru has 150K disposable income monthly. He has all these other dependents. He has an aged mother, he has a wife, he has 4 children. Shakiru um, lives in a not so great neighborhood, but still likes to show up looking really good and making people think or believe he lives somewhere better than where he is. Shakiru is aspirational. At that point, you know that your product needs to look and feel like $1 million, but you still need to be able to keep the pricing so low for someone like Shakiru to be able to access it. So all those ideation process would help you refine and take you from the point where it's not just an idea, but actually a viable or a potentially viable product. Okay, so back to what I was saying. So number one, you create your business plan or a business model as a minimum. Then you do a competitive advantage. You need to figure out what it is that I need to do differently or do better than my competition. Next would be operational processes. Um, Operational processes is my major actually. You look at businesses like McDonald's or businesses like Nike or businesses like Apple or businesses like Coca-Cola. Whether you're having Coke in Lagos, Nigeria, or you're having Coke in London, United Kingdom, or you're having Coke in Kutuweji, you would have a minimum standard to expect. And the reason why products have been able to start the test of time like Coca-Cola and has become global phenomenon is not just because they have great ideas or that they had a great plan, but also because they've been able to create operational excellence at creating those products, such that wherever they are all over the world, there is certain quality consistency across board. You can only achieve that through some basic level of consistency across a functional department. So by functional department, I mean operations, marketing, research and development, finance, and so I think next week, what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach us on how to create processes around our core business functions. So if you have a product, you need to define how it is that that product is created from the raw material to the finished product. You need to define how that product is then put in the hands of the customer, and there needs to be processes that are documented and clear, so that if you hire 10 people tomorrow or you hire 2 people next year, all you need to do is just give them that documentation and they can replicate your business. A lot of organizations call it standard operating manuals or SOPs. That's very important for your business, because your business is only as good as the people who operate it, the players in there. And a lot of times we blame workers as not giving their best or not being diligent or skillful, when in a lot of cases, we actually haven't given them the tools that they need or that they require to be able to do what they need to do. So you need to ensure that your systems and your processes are standardized. They need to be very clear, such that people create, your workers now, they create products or they create services that are consistent across board, irrespective of where they are. Next, strategy. Strategy is transcends and keeps changing. I tell people all the time, culture would eat strategy for lunch. So what you're creating, this operational excellence and all of this process guides that your staff and people working in the business would use, including yourself, remember you're doing something, you're creating a culture. You're trying to establish how businesses needs to be done or how your operations needs to be done. So you go to an organization. So I was working for a client recently, and then we needed to interface with a client of theirs, which, by the way, is a multinational. And I've interfaced with that other company with a different client at a different time. It's amazing. The email sounds the same, irrespective of who is typing it. Excuse me. All of that is simply because over the years and over time, they've standardized all of these things. And that's exactly what we need to do. But again, what you're doing with those standardization is you're trying to create a culture that can then be a representation of your brand, of your product, or of your business. So look at strategy this way. We just recently decided to move from creating not just lifestyle shoes for men, but also functional shoes for men and boys. So we're creating school shoes, we're creating sight boots, we're creating croc-like shoes that medical personnel can wear in the hospital and things like that. So we're moving it away now from our original plan, because yes, our business is evolving. We're not just doing lifestyle now. We're not trying to do something that are functional. Now, we are creating a strategy to develop that new product line at our board meeting. So we started talking to ourselves about, okay, so how do we then create this new approach or this new business, blah, blah, blah. We can design all of those and come up with a well-laid plan. But if our culture as a business does not support that new line or does not support that new expansion, then our strategy would be non-existent. It's not going to work. So strategy is always measured and judged based on competition. Don't forget that. I wrote that down. I just remember that I didn't say it. When you're developing that new strategy, you're not just ensuring that your culture or your existing processes can make it happen. You're also making sure that you're not ignoring your competition and you're benchmarking those strategies based on your competitors' behavior. Okay. Something I should have mentioned earlier, I skipped it because I thought I was running against time. There are 5 force models that you need to consider when you're thinking about your industry or the profitability of your venture, remember I said to you that your business is not just, shouldn't just be a hobby or a passion or something that you enjoy doing. If that is the case, that's a big plus. But no, that shouldn't be the only thing. Your business ultimately should be solving a problem. And your business, while solving a problem, must have big enough accessible market. If you do not take anything away from today, remember those. Now, when you're analyzing your accessible market, remember I said to you that it's not just about the overall size of the market, but what portion of that market can you access? Is it 5%? Is it 2%? Is it 10%? And why is it just that percentage? Is it because of the activities of your competitor? And the truth is, yes, the accessible market is often or most of the time influenced by competitors' behavior. So there are 5 force models. The fourth is when you're trying to determine industry profitability. Because I remember saying to us that a business or entrepreneurship there's a science to it. You can do any business, even if you don't have innate proclivity towards it. Because over the years, they've told us that, our business or the things that we do for business has to be something that we have natural affinity for. Yes, that's easier. It makes it easier if that's the case. But even if you don't have natural affinity for something, you could still make a business out of it. There are things that I make money from that I am not naturally excited about, but I still make money out of it, and they are viable businesses. There are ways to structure that. So now, let me go back to what I was trying to say. You can translate all of this principle into any industry over any product. You can copy and paste and reiterate it. As long as the foundation of all of the basics are there, then you can make a business out of it. Now, as an entrepreneur, how do you then measure the profitability of an industry? If an industry is even something that you should get involved with, so number one, the intensity of the competition. So there are some businesses that are highly competitive, highly competitive. So let's use an example. The soda business or the soda market, the Coca-Cola, the Pepsi, and all these guys. That industry is intensely competitive because you have big players there that have mastered how to provide good products. They have captured the taste board of a big portion of the market. And guess what? They have enough resources and infrastructure to provide the same product at a much cheaper rate than you can. Even if you decide to go as low as possible, you still cannot compete with them because they have an entire infrastructure behind them to actually enable them produce or make these products available at ridiculously low rates. They have economies of scale working for them. With those sort of industry, you definitely want to think twice before getting into it, even if your passion or your calling is about helping people have good soft drinks in their fridge. But really, you can't compete. I remember when Biggie came into the market. I remember when Lakasara came into the Nigerian market. Their strategies were completely different. And they initially did not start out competing with the likes of Cokes and Pepsi and Fanta and Sprite or 7-Up. They had a completely different focus and they have a completely different niche. Now, that you must also consider if your business is, I want to be an interior designer or I want to be a real estate developer, or I want to be, I want to provide education services, I want to set up a training school. You need to think about the market. So I remember when I came into Nigeria to start the very first business I did on my own, I mean, proper business, not the ones we did while on campus, selling, buying and selling. No, the real business I did as an adult coming back to Nigeria was in 2008. It was a company called Project People. Actually, 2007, I started it out in the UK, but then came back to Nigeria and they started Project People in 2008. What we were doing at the time was we were providing training. And then I was working on my experiences were largely around project management and business analysis. So I came into Nigeria and I wanted to do consulting, but the people I would be competing with, I cannot compete with them, literally. They were the Accentures, they were the Ernst and Young, they were the KPMGs, they were the big boys, the big five. I didn't have what it takes or what it took to compete with them at the time. And also because I did not have professional network here in Nigeria. So all my corporate world experience at that time were in the UK. So I didn't have like ex-colleagues that I can reach out to and say, okay, and now I'm in business, this is now what I do. So it was difficult competing with those people. So what did I do? I started out as a trainer. So we set up a small firm and then we started providing project management training. Now, this was in 2008. At that time, we were the only people that were providing that training and the certification. As a matter of fact, project management was something that not a lot of people knew what it was. If you tell people, I'm in project management or I'm a project management consultant, the first thing they think you're doing is that you're a contractor, you're into construction. And it took me a lot to break it down for people and say, no, project management is not about a particular industry. Actually, there are projects in every single industry, and therefore there's project management in every single industry. It was easy for us to come into training because there were no local competition. Now, that was not the case back in the UK. Back in the UK, I remember in the small town of Bournemouth, where we were working out of at that time. I can't remember the population of Bournemouth, but it's most definitely not up to Ikeja. And in that small space alone, we had almost 10 companies like ours. Whereas I came into Nigeria and we were the only one at that time. So the industry you need to get into is, number one, you need to figure out what is the intensity of the competition in that industry. And it's a major force model that determines profitability. So we came in and we started training, and it was a no-brainer. Like it was an instant hit. And number two thing that determine profitability within your industry is the bargaining power of your suppliers. So if you have suppliers that are, so you part of the raw material that you need for your product is only supplied by XYZ, and maybe they have monopoly of that market, or they have the proprietary license, or they only them have the technical know-how. But whatever the case is, your supplier have intense bargaining power. There is no diversity, there is not a lot of option amongst the supplier group. The profitability of your industry is reduced significantly. So that's also something that would influence, and you need to seriously think about that or consider that before deciding to go into a particular industry. The third will be the bargaining power of your buyers. So think about this, for instance. So you have buyers that have tons of options. You're not the only one selling. So in a market or in an industry where your product or your service is highly commoditized, your competitiveness is going to be a big problem because you can't raise prices anyhow. And competition's action can significantly throw you out of the game. And number four, the threat of new entrants. So I was thinking about this, and I was thinking of um, what are the examples or the scenarios that I can use. So look at Wakana, for instance. That's the travel company. I remember when Wakana came into the business, they were largely the only travel business that is that big. Other travel agents are just one or two people hustling here and there. But the threat of somebody being able to come into the market and throw you off balance was something that those travel agents did not see coming. I remember then, if you needed to travel, you call your travel agent, they find you a ticket, you pay, and you go. But now with Waka now, at that time, I'm talking some 5, 6, maybe even 10 years ago, you don't even call travel agent anymore. You just go on the internet, go on Waka now, and then you buy your ticket and then you move. And a lot of travel agents stopped having businesses. So part of what determined the, thank you for helping me answer that. Part of what determined the profitability of your industry and you considering, oh, should I go into this industry? Number four is, how easy is it for new people to come in, maybe with bigger money or bigger portfolio, and knock me out? So you have brands that are not doing what you're doing at all. They are doing something else completely, but people already know that brand. That brand just woke up one morning and said, you know what, we also now want to start doing this thing. They have the leverage of a powerful brand. That also makes it a lot less profitable and a lot more challenging for your industry. And number five, the last thing I've documented here is the threat of a substitute. The threat of a substitute is if currently people are buying your product or people are buying a particular product, but there is another product that might not be quite the same product, but actually delivers the same end results for the customer. That threat might be significant enough to make your industry too competitive and make you not want to go into it. So I know there are a lot of questions around industry profitability and the 5 force model. So I'm going to talk about them all over again. I'll list them one over again. Number one is the intensity of the competition. How fierce is competition? Number two, the bargaining power of your suppliers. So if you're in an industry, so let's say, for instance, you're in the computer making industry, processors are mostly done by Intel. So if you're not doing Intel or AMD, then you are not having a processor. Suppliers are too powerful in that industry and they dictate the pace. That does not mean you shouldn't do it, but it's something to consider when you're getting into an industry, because all of those behavior of your supplier would intensely affect or determine your profitability. So number three, bargaining power of your buyers. Your buyers, do they have options? Do they have a lot of other places they could go to get similar value? That way, you can't do anyhow. You can't raise prices anyhow. You can't, and usually this is something that you'll find in the commodities market. Number four, threats of new entrants, somebody coming into the market, how easy it is, how low is the entry barrier. If this is not a really difficult space to get people into, then that would be a problem. I thought I was going to give us an assignment. So I'm going to discuss with PF and I'm going to get their particular episode to you. So there is a show called The Dragon's Den. It's a show where investors go to pitch their products to dragons. So we have Shark Tank in America, you have Dragons Den in the UK. So I'm going to speak with Pierre. I'm going to get 1 episode or 2 episodes from YouTube, and I'm sure he will communicate with everyone so that we can watch that before coming up to this session next Sunday. It would help you understand as an investor, and that's what I do. So being in private equity, I'm constantly sitting in the other chair and looking at your business, and I'm poking holes into it. So I'm looking at you, so you come to pitch your business to me. I'm asking, how competitive is this industry? What are the 5 force model? Even if I don't list it out for you, I'm not talking to you the way I'm talking to you. In my brain, that is what I'm thinking about. And as an entrepreneur, that's what you should also think about before deciding to invest in a business. You're thinking, what's the intensity of competition in this industry? So you're asking me to give you $100,000. So that's averagely a little over 50 million to do this business. Am I going to lose my money? Is this business really going to yield the kind of returns that I'm hoping it to yield? I'm thinking like an entrepreneur here, because I'm thinking like an investor here. Sorry, investors will consider what's the intensity of the competition in this industry I'm about to put my money into. What's the bargaining power of your suppliers? What's the bargaining power of the buyers? What's the threat of new entrants? Can somebody just try and come in and do the same business and love you? So that's why when you watch Dragons Den or you watch Shark Tank, some of the entrepreneurs would tell them, oh, I have patents. So patents is that legal documentation you get from the government that allows you to do your business with, that allows you to use your invention exclusively for a period, usually 10 years. That way, the entry barrier is being raised significantly. Investors are a lot more confident to put money into your business because they know that the barrier of entry is a lot higher and there is not a lot of threat of new entrants. But that does not remove the threat of a substitute, which is number 5. So remember, what Lacasera did to Coca-Cola was not necessarily replacing Coca-Cola. What Lacasera did was actually creating a completely different product. So at that time, there were no Apple fizzy drinks. And Lacasera came with Apple, and they made sure that it was so sugary. It had so much sugar, and sugar is addictive. And that way, it became a substitute to Coke. Another thing you can think about is when Five Alive came. Five Alive was so profitable, Coca-Cola had to acquire it. And Coca-Cola had done the same for Chivita. Coca-Cola have acquired Chivita as well because Coca-Cola thought of Chivita as a massive competition. And what is Chivita doing? Chivita was providing substitutes to Coke. And a lot of people were going for Chivita, especially when Chivita then came up with the premium brand where they said 0 sugar added. All the sweetness comes from the natural fruit. And people that were thinking about healthy lifestyle started gravitating more towards Chivita, and they stopped buying Coke. What did Coca-Cola do? They bought Chivita and they removed that threat of substitute, because even if you now buy Chivita, the bottom line is still the Nigerian bottling company, which is Coca-Cola. So pretty much, when you're starting a business, these are the things you need to think about. These are the things you need to consider. And when you figure out how to get into this business, or you figure out this is the business I want to do, and you've layered all of these things on, then we can start talking about other deeper things like creating your SOPs, or creating your strategies, or creating your business plan, which are the things that I'm going to focus on in the next class. Remember, I said to us, there is a science to doing business and there's an art form to it. even if you're not, I might not know how to play tennis, but I can create a business out of tennis playing, really. You can apply this principle across board and you would be getting the same results each time, provided you do the job or you do the work diligently. It's a plus if something you're naturally inclined to and you have natural proclivity towards, but not necessarily the only thing that you need to do to get your business off the ground. And so yes, at this point, I would like to just entertain questions on what we've talked about today. Remember, we're laying foundations today. Somehow I thought I was saying very technical things. I hope I didn't go way too over your head. You can ask any questions you may have. And of course, if any question come to mind before at the end of this session, before next Sunday, you can document that questions and send them ahead. Somebody is asking, are these strategies you've shared applicable in international markets? I think that's the question. Yes, these are global principles. Yes, actually, they are probably more applicable abroad because you have data. It's easy to access data. It's easy to access proper empirical figures to come up with your conclusions as to what you're doing. But yes, these are business school type things. These are the kind of things they teach in business school anywhere. So yes, these are applicable anywhere. So I was saying, if you have questions, even after this session, before next Sunday, please share them with PF. PF will figure out it gets to me and we can discuss them in class next week Sunday. I'd also like to make this as practical as possible. So if anyone is thinking of, I'm happy to use your businesses as guinea pig in the class so that we can drive home some of the points using some real life businesses people are into or people are currently doing. Also, let me know if any of that is the case, and then we can share your business. You can use your business as a case study. By next week, I'll bring a case study to class, which we share. And then by the third week, we would have case studies that we would use in addressing and talking about these things. So yes, at some point, we would need pen and paper before the end of this 4 weeks. I'm just trying to lay the foundation here, and I hope you guys had a good time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, okay. Thank you so much. I mean, I have 4 pages from session 4. Yes. So this is my notes. I'm taking notes, 4 pages, and I have implementable plans already. Thank you very, very, very much. We're really, really grateful. We hope to see you next week, guys. I'm not even sure today is about asking questions. Today is about go and digest what he has shared, and go back and start your business from scratch. I mean, he's mentioned a whole lot of things. Are you in the business, or you are just servicing a lifestyle, or you are in a hobby and you're going to the business, and you need to find out the size of your market, be a problem solver. Do you have enough people that can pay for it? Your skills gap. Do you need a co-founder? If you need a co-founder, what level of equity are you going to have with the person? Is it the initial, the one you give at the beginning, vested at the start or vested at the end? Do you need to hire, or you go learn a skill? And then the business planning process. He talked about business model canvas, and several things, the operational processes and all. So I am a good student. I am taking my notes. Okay, so that will not beat me. Right, girls, I must tell you, Goke's time is a lot. I know what it's costing him to come and do this. Guys, we cannot pay him. If we have to pay him, I'll just be deported from America. That's the truth. But we share relationship, And that's why we can have Goke. So please, let's not take advantage. I mean, let's take full advantage of this. The best gift we can give to him is go and implement, right? And if you want to now consult privately with him, be ready to pay for his services. It's not going to be free. Trust me. You're getting it for free here because it's House of Saviors. But if you want to consult with him privately, I can give you access, but you will pay, or whether equity or you will pay, in cash. Thank you very much, Goke. We appreciate and celebrate you for your time. Okay, Zuriel, over to you.
It was indeed an amazing class. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Okay, really appreciate it. Thank you. Yes, we've come to the end of today's amazing class. I hope you all took notes. And like Mr. Goke said, please, next class, come in with your pen, come in with your paper, so you can jot down and you begin to write. The House of Savior is not where you just come, listen, you get excited and you go away. No, we want results. We want relatable results. We want results we can see. And every other, yes, Savior Business School, yeah, absolutely. And what result every other person can see. Because the beauty of this is, after this, you are going out to plant.
I am praise for warware.com.